Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel. Thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. Then I can send my best to your inbox on a daily basis. And if you like the watches, you can buy them on our website, thewatchbox.com. Buy, trade, and sell on thewatchbox.com. See additional high-res images, boxes, papers, and accessories as applicable, and full pricing for every watch we post on thewatchbox.com. I actually highlighted this reference 5015D a few days ago, but not on the extraordinary and brand-defining X71 steel bracelet. So we're going to have another go with the gloriously blue and guilloche-cut 5015 50 Fathoms. We can back up a little bit, and I'm going to show you the watch on my wrist because it fits well for a truly oversized reference. My 16 centimeter circumference wrist has no trouble accommodating this watch. There are a couple of ways to measure it. First of all, there's 45 millimeters across the round of the case. That's 9:3, not including the crown or crown guards. Then there's the thickness of the watch. 15.6 millimeters. It might not be as thick as you anticipate. It will slip underneath a jacket cuff, to be sure. Lug to lug, yet another way to measure the watch. 51 millimeters is the distance between the edges of the physical case, the lug to lug measurement across the wrist, but the X71, as opposed to the sailcloth strap, adds two solid end links that do extend the watch, so you wind up with a burly measurement of 55.9 across the wrist. For those of you who want to accessorize or perhaps buy the watch for the value of the bracelet and then swap it to a strap for perhaps preference, you're going to find that an accessory strap of 23 millimeters will suit, and the watch does feature screws fixing the bracelet or strap in place for utmost security as opposed to spring bars used by others, Blancpain leading the way with the 5015. Now let's talk about this X15 bracelet. It's a legendary thing, rarely seen on the 50 Fathoms, because most folks simply opt for the more affordable sailcloth option. Now they won't regret that, but they'll never know what they're missing. First, you can see the level of manufacturing tolerance as the links actually feature an interlinking profile such that you have male and female links and there's a seamless transition from one to the other. We're not talking, for example, the big open gaps that you get in a traditional luxury watch bracelet. This is an Omega Speedmaster Day-Date. That's not what we're dealing with here. This feels more like a precision engineered industrial component, almost like a conveyor belt of some kind. You'll also note that the intermediate polish on the flank and satin on the top makes for a handsome contrast. There's just enough polish here that it doesn't feel jarring in conjunction with the full satin finished case of the 5015D. Large links down the center, and you can see from the underside still plenty of gaps to aerate the wrist on a hot day. This is not one to trap heat, moist sweat, or grit. The clasp, depending on your perspective, is either perfect or somewhat short of what you'd expect of a diver. Now, it might be perfect if you like to have the security of both a leaf spring holding it closed and a trigger mechanism required to open it, as well as the low profile to avoid desk diving scratches and scuffs. If you are looking for some sort of diving extension, you're going to find that there isn't one here, but what you're given is beautifully finished and executed in the finest standards of Le Bracelet watchmaking. If you want to extend it any more across the wrist, you might just want to put it on the strap. The bracelet, supremely comfortable, even on my tiny wrist. Now we'll get close to the dial and try to appreciate what this watch brings to the table because it is different from the standard 5015. If you didn't see my previous review of the watch on the strap, you're going to want to know that you have the same dimensions and lines, but here you have a satin finish, and it's an uncommon satin finish to blunt the somewhat overwhelming polish that this watch comes in standard steel. So you can see that the satin grain is also vertically arrayed, so it's not the conventional longitudinal satin finish that you get on most watches that use that treatment. It's a different look, and when you examine the watch in detail, the sexiness of its contours and the attention to small design elements really stands out, including the fact that the lugs are not blended in so much as they jut out from the caseband to create another sharp crease. This one has immense charm and immense presence thanks to the innumerable small refinements that add up. You'll also note that the knurling of the bezel is deep, and it's easy to get a grip on the bezel when your hands are a little bit sweaty or gloved. Because it is so broad, it requires relatively less force than narrower, tighter, smaller diameter bezel. There is something to note about the way the bezel feels. It's almost as though Blancpain wanted something a little bit more refined. They didn't quite want the the ratcheting clack of a Panerai Luminor submersible or an Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean. Those, when you rotate them, almost sound like a BAR emptying an entire clip. Basically just a relentless automatic weapon rat-a-tat-tat. Here you have more of a creamy Cadillac-like feel. The detents are crisp and clear and you can feel them. There's no confusion there, but they were going for a different kind of sensation under the finger and they achieved it. You'll also note that the watch features a domed sapphire that helps to magnify the indices and the numerals and also protects the luminescent paint that is applied to the entirety of the bezel base. So you get a fully luminescent bezel thanks to the scratch-resistant sapphire cap protecting the Luminova paint. Line up the index with the minute hand, which you can see is a hybrid of a broadsword and syringe style, and you have a 0 to 60-minute countdown timer, or perhaps I should say count up timer, as it counts up to 60 clockwise. This is excellent whether you're diving or not, as it's a quick, easy, at-a-glance reference of elapsed time. As long as you don't need to time something longer than 60 minutes, I actually prefer that type of arrangement to a chronograph. The dial does stand apart from the standard 5015. As you can see, it features a undulating rose-lathe guilloche pattern at center. It's metallic, so it has a wonderful reflective quality too. Really catches the light and plays across the surface of the dial. All of the indices, hands, as well as the quarter Arabics are white gold and applique, not printed. And you'll note that there's a little bit of a step to the center dial, and the satin metallic finished hour track is just below the plane for a different focal level. You'll also note that the monotone date disc, which is also in blue, is rather discreet. It's there when you want it, but it's not intrusive. You'll also appreciate the fact that the crown is wonderfully deep in its knurling profile. Those are chunky, almost cog-like spokes, and it's easy to dig your fingers into this crown, and even when it's fully secure, back it out so that you can better control the watch's many functions. Well, maybe not many functions, but the few it has are excellent. The feel of operating this crown is rock solid. Many dive watches give up their game and feel rather delicate once their burly screw-down crowns are withdrawn. This stem and stem tube assembly is incredibly secure. It feels like it is truly anchored, almost as though it's planted on a piling rather than a stem. So it feels substantial like the rest of the watch. Hacking seconds. There is also, let's quickly move out of the danger zone. There is also a quick set date function for rapidly cycling the date should the watch run down. Now the movement is above category for a dive watch. Automatic winding, 3 mainspring barrels, and a 5-day power reserve. 300 meters water resistant thanks to the screwed-in case back and the screw-down crown. The watch also features 35 pivot jewels and an entirely hand-finished set of bridges and plates. So though there isn't a display caseback, the movement is beautifully executed. It's what you would expect of Blancpain. It's enough to know that it's there. Luxury that you can't see, but you can count on it all the same. So the movement features a free-sprung balance, which makes it a little bit tougher than the norm, and the caliber 1315 in the watch is effectively the automatic winding adaptation of the high horology 13RO caliber used in Blancpain's premier complications and dress watches. So a tough movement that's also technically proficient and beautifully finished. This is a watch that puts it all together. Beautiful and big and bold in blue. You can see and you can own this 50 Fathoms on our website. And we are back with the Blancpain 50 Fathoms 5015D. This is where the traditional 50 Fathoms 5015 throws shade all over the reference 5000 bathyscaphe. An absolute sensation, almost an otherworldly sight, the likes of which you might have expected at Roswell in 1947. This watch has one of the finest, most distinctive, and most functional lume aspects of any luxury timepiece, sports category or otherwise, on the market. And you'll even note how the domed profile of the gloriously bubble-like sapphire helps to play with and bend the light of the lume at night. A glorious watch day or night. You can see this one and make it yours on our website.